Hey, thanks for joining us today. I'm Meteorologist Taylor Cox, and we are tracking storms across the East Coast today, all thanks to not one, but two hurricanes churning out just across the East Coast in the Atlantic Ocean. Now, Imelda is officially a hurricane. It's bringing some tropical moisture to the East Coast. It's going to feel really muggy over the next few days, and we'll talk about the exact impacts that we could see from these two hurricanes. One of those impacts that we see today is that Hurricane Humberto is churning near Bermuda. Okay, so there's hurricane warnings issued for Bermuda today, and we'll talk a little bit more about that track and future forecast for Humberto and Imelda in just a few minutes. Meanwhile, it is relatively quiet on land. Your severe weather for today and tomorrow are pretty quiet. When can we finally see that return? We'll talk about that here in just a few minutes. Alrighty, if you have not gone to roofcon.com/2025-Oklahoma, go ahead and do that today, because our CEO, Derek Klein, CEO of HailTrace, is speaking. He's going to do a masterclass on October 6th. That is a week from yesterday. So get your tickets now, because you do not want to miss this phenomenal masterclass. Now, if you have never seen Derek speak before, you absolutely want to. So go to roofcon.com/2025-Oklahoma. We'll put that in the comment section. Alrighty, let's take a look at yesterday's storm reports. Few and far between, almost non-existent. Now that will be a very, very similar story to what we see today, because while this map may look really, really active, we don't have a ton of severe weather ongoing today. But I think what a lot of people want to see are these two areas right down here. Now this is very, very interesting. Let's actually zoom down to Hurricane Imelda and Hurricane Humberto. Do you guys see how close these storms are to each other? What's going to happen is this is called the Fujiwhara effect. They're going to find a dot right in the center of these two storms. And what's going to happen is these two storms are going to try to pivot around that dot. Now that's going to push Imelda off to the east. And then we've got some other upper level factors that are going to play in here. It's also going to push Humberto out to the east because of those upper level factors that are playing in here. But what's really, really interesting is oftentimes whenever we see the Fujiwhara effect, two things could happen. We could either see that spin intensify, it would slingshot Imelda off to the east, or the stronger storm will essentially absorb the smaller storm, and that smaller storm is going to weaken very, very quickly. So you're going to see that in the track for Humberto. What's going to happen here is this storm is going to weaken very quickly, and Imelda is going to strengthen. And we'll talk about that here in just a few minutes, but I do want to also show you that this storm is pretty close to land. Let's see, how close are we talking about here? If we go from Imelda to the northern central portion of Florida, we've got about 270 miles off land here, so maybe you've got some of those outer clouds that are coming into Jacksonville here. You've also got some outer clouds that are coming into places like Charleston, as Imelda, the center of the storm, is about 300 miles away from Charleston. Now moving back on land, how much rain are we going to see over the next few days? Not a ton, especially in the center of the U.S. So if you're looking for a time to get outside, go ahead and do that this week. It's going to be great weather. Not great severe weather, okay? We're not going to see a ton of severe weather over the next week. If we take a look at our hail map here, maximum hail size, maybe up to a quarter, but most likely no hail at all, if I'm being honest with you. We actually have such a low chance for hail across the U.S. right now. We are saying no significant hail expected here. So no hail map today. I'll show you the radar for today. I'll show you that forecast. We're not going to hype it up for you. If there's not going to be any hail, we're going to tell you that. Okay, there's your storms that are churning out in the Atlantic right now. We've got some showers across the East Coast and we've got showers across the West Coast, but for the most part, the central portion of the U.S. is staying dry. Moving on, let's move off to the East Coast here. Yep, there you go. I really want to show you what these storms are doing, and we're going to talk more about Humberto and Imelda here in just a few minutes. But you can see how it's pushing some moisture anywhere from Atlanta to Raleigh. Jacksonville could have some flooding issues later on this week as the storm continues to sit right in kind of the pocket of Florida to North Carolina here, and then eventually it'll swing off to the east. All right, so let's talk about the West Coast. We've also got several fronts coming in off the West Coast here. That's going to bring more rain across places like the Rockies over the next few days and potentially some severe weather later this week. But over the next at least 2 days, we're going to be pretty quiet in terms of severe weather, okay? Moving on here, let's talk about a flood risk because we've talked about that flood risk on the East Coast. Not today. It's going to be a West Coast problem today. And then we're going to pivot to the East Coast as we get into Wednesday and Thursday as we still continue to see that lingering rain in this area, mainly just off the East Coast of Florida. Now let's get deeper into our hurricane forecast. We've talked about Imelda and Humberto several times now. The biggest place that is going to be in the path for these storms is Bermuda. Bermuda got hit by the outer bands of Erin earlier this year, is getting impacted by the outer bands of Humberto right now, which is rapidly weakening, by the way. And then we'll eventually get hit with Imelda, which is going to take almost a direct path towards Bermuda. So let's talk about that here in just a few minutes. Let's go ahead and let's fast forward here. Okay, there's your track that we've seen from Imelda and Humberto. What's going to happen is Imelda is going to swing off to the east, almost taking a direct northeast path here from a Category 1 hurricane to a Category 2 hurricane. As it gets closer and closer to Humberto, what it's going to do is it's going to become the larger and stronger storm. Meanwhile, Humberto is going to weaken significantly, especially in the northern latitudes here. It's going to weaken significantly, it's going to disorganize, and it's going to become a low pressure system over the next 24 hours. However, Imelda is still pretty strong, a Category 2 hurricane over the next 24 hours, and then slowly weakening to that Category 1 hurricane strength later on this week, also impacting Bermuda here. So Bermuda is getting impacted by Hurricanes Erin, Humberto, and eventually Imelda. So let's see our spaghetti model plots one more time here. We've got a great question here from Ray. What sort of flood levels are they expecting in Jacksonville? So this is a great question, and I think that if we look at your excessive rainfall outlook, you'll see that they have, and let me pull that back up for you 1 second here, because Jacksonville will be one of the most impacted by Imelda. Let's go ahead and pull this back up. And this is a great opportunity to say, if you guys have any more weather questions, go ahead and stick that in the comments section. We can see that, and our producer John is doing a great job monitoring those questions and making sure that we get all of your weather questions answered. So let's talk about Jacksonville real quick. You can see that our flood outlook really focuses on the West Coast for now. However, as we head into the middle to maybe end of this week, we're really watching for Jacksonville and the eastern coast of Florida to get that excessive rainfall. You know, we've got some lingering moisture in this area thanks to those storms, right? So we've got a level 1 risk right now, and level 1 most of the time means that your flash flooding is going to be pretty isolated. But what we're saying here, what the flash flooding is coming from, is from rainfall, right? That doesn't also include any sort of storm surge. So I've got the National Weather Service, or the Storm Prediction Center, pulled up on the side of my screen over here, and I want to read you what they're saying from the Jacksonville, Florida office. And actually, let me see if I can scoot this in real quick so that you can see my screen. Yeah, we've got my laptop right here. Let's go ahead and talk about Hurricane Imelda. So from the National Weather Service of Jacksonville, they're saying Hurricane Imelda passing offshore the central Florida East Coast before shifting out into the Atlantic. We talked about that. This will cause dangerous beach and boating conditions for northeast Florida, including Jacksonville. and southeast Georgia through the week. Local impacts are high risk of rip currents, high surf, breezy conditions, and minor beach erosion and minor tidal flooding. You guys know the drill here. If in doubt, don't go out. So they're saying that it's not going to be a massive or a widespread dangerous situation. However, they're saying that there are some concerns, and if in doubt, don't go out. They're saying that locals and visitors will follow beach patrol guidance and flags. Some nuisance flooding of low-lying areas, docks, and boat ramps will be some of the biggest impacts here. So again, that's coming from the National Weather Service of Jacksonville, Florida. A great question coming from Ray about the flooding conditions there. The biggest thing that you're going to watch out for here are going to be those low-lying areas. Alrighty, moving on and continuing to talk about the spaghetti models here. So if we go to take a look at the long-term outlook from both Imelda and Humberto, you're going to see what we showed earlier. Our models, they're in agreement here. We like to see that. That gives us strong confidence or high confidence in our forecast. It looks like most of our models are pulling Imelda to the east. We've got only one that's diverting going up to the northeast. For the most part, these are pulling this storm almost directly to the northeast or straight east here. And then Humberto is doing a little loop. What it's going to do is it's going to turn up to the north, and then it's going to turn back to the south. Basically, at this point, it's just plain disorganized. It doesn't have a lot of forcing. It's basically going to get absorbed by Imelda here. As you can see, they get very, very close to each other and then continue to track off to the east, really becoming Bermuda's problem here and away from the East Coast, away from the United States. So the direct impact on the United States here is going to be very, very small. However, the indirect impact, like some of those higher tides or some of those higher waves rather, some breezy conditions to places like Florida, Georgia, and South Carolina is going to be coming from Imelda. So there you go, there's your long-term outlook here. I don't love to show these long-term models, but I think in this case we've got a lot of agreements. And I really like this model right here. Alrighty, moving on, let's go back on land now. Oh, we're talking about how much time do we have left in hurricane season. Well, we are officially at the very end of September. Today is the last day of September. We have a lot of time left in hurricane season, mainly the month of October. So over the next 30 days, we're going to be watching for what happens next. Our next named storm will be Jerry. That comes after Imelda here, Karen after that, and Lorenzo following that. I think our HailTrace forecast for this year, let me double check here. I'll pull it up on the screen for you guys. Okay, so right now we're at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 named storms. Our HailTrace forecast was between 12 and 17 named storms. So we have at least 3 more storms to go before we have verified that forecast. That's about average, if not just slightly above average for this time of the year. And for hurricanes, about 6 to 10 hurricanes is about what we've forecasted here. About 2 to 3 of those to be major hurricanes. So right about average, if not slightly above average. Alrighty, moving on, let's go ahead and bring us back on land. Let's talk about temperatures now. We're warming up across most of the U.S. So while we have a lack of storms, we're going to have some nice warm temperatures. We talked about this about a week ago, that October was going to start out above average. So temperatures, if your average is 82, you have a really good chance to be at 88. So nothing record-breaking, but above average none the least. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of the highs across the country this week. We're talking about temperatures that are sitting in the 80s, maybe 90s as we head into the middle of the work week. We've got a few 70s that are trying to mix in there in places like Rapid City and Denver, Colorado. For the most part, we'll be in the 80s and 90s. It looks like this warm trend is going to continue as we head into the first to maybe second week of October, October 5th through the 9th. Temperatures will stay above average, and we've got a really good chance to bring back in that moisture. Okay, so the first thing that I see right here is October 5th through the 9th. Warm temperatures and moisture, we could see our storm season coming back. So it's quiet right now. However, tune in later on this week, and we'll be talking about the potential for severe weather as we go into October. Thanks for joining us today. I'm meteorologist Taylor Cox, and we'll be talking about your forecast tomorrow as well. So join us back here on the noon forecast tomorrow. Follow us in the meantime on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. And give us a call if you're interested in a hail, wind, or tornado map at 855-334-4245. Email us at info@hailtrace.com or head over to our website, hailtrace.com. This is a great time of year while it's quiet to go back and look at those storms that happened a few months ago and work those storms, work those areas that have not been worked quite yet. Give us a call if you would like help on a map and finding those honey holes. Thanks for joining us today. I'm meteorologist Taylor Cox, and we'll see you back here same time, same place tomorrow.